Coordinator for the City of Albuquerque's Planning Department. Today we're going to be here to talk about the recent code enforcement inspection, the Barcelona Suites, and the subsequent closure. We're going to be hearing from Mayor Tim Keller today and spokespeople from the Planning Department, APD, and ACS. We will also have a Q&A session at the end, so please hold your questions until then. And with that, Mayor Tim Keller.
Well, thank you all so much for being here, and I want to begin, I think, by centering us in this place, Barcelona Court. And as folks look around behind me or around this facility, this is in many ways extra tragic for two reasons. One is, this is the home historically for our proms, our graduations. It was the nicest hotel when you were visiting out of town from the state fair. That's what Barcelona Court was for our city up until, 3-4 years ago. And what you also see, which is incredibly deceptive, and this is also why it took us a while to really crack down on this property, is you see, we believe, a conscious effort by the owners to sort of keep the external parts nice. And so whether it's code enforcement or fire or even the media, you can see here the lobby is in pretty good shape. The facade on Louisiana looks pretty good. It looks like it's the same as it always has. That could not be more opposite than what was happening inside. This place was drug infested and crime ridden and full of all the problems that we see in Albuquerque, and it was all for this neighborhood being run out of this hotel. And so when you think about the examples of this, whether it was the fact that there were no windows on this side of the hotel and this is where they were just dealing drugs out the window, whether you think about the fact that there were, I think, 3 murders in the last 5 years just on the outskirts of this property, or which we will send you the pictures of the actual rooms. Toilets that don't flush, overflowing with waste in bathrooms, bed bugs, fentanyl everywhere, stolen goods stored in rooms throughout this facility. That's what this place was. It was a nest for the worst of the worst in Albuquerque. And the ownership, who knows what details they know about and what they didn't. They are out of state. But it certainly seemed to feel like they were trying to conceal it in general from the public. Now, the reason, in part, why we were able to do this is because of the consistent and persistent advocacy of the neighbors who live around this facility. Many of them are here today, and they have told me for about a year, and I know they sent letters and all these other things about their own eyewitness accounts of watching drug dealing out the window, of watching their house get broken into and the getaway car pull into this garage. And so, believe it or not, it takes a little while. We actually read those letters. And then we went to a couple of neighborhood meetings where these issues came up. And the neighbors, again, continued to say it is so much worse than it looks from the outside or from the courtyard. And they were right from day one. So now we are honoring that input and that essentially truth that they spoke by closing this facility. And so we have done what we've been doing now. This is the 7th hotel throughout the city where we've had a layered approach, multi-department approach to basically come in and really understand on a room-by-room basis what is happening in a hotel. And in this case, almost everything that was happening was illegal in one way or another. That's why we're shutting it down. So I want to also mention that there's things like backed up water and sewer lines, there's water damage, there's mold, there's pest infestations, cockroaches, pigeons, dead pigeons throughout the air conditioning units also, which didn't work. And then we did have long-term tenants in here. So I also want to emphasize, as we've seen in other parts of the city, there were some people who were living here. Number one, that is also a violation because there isn't the proper kitchens and stoves and so forth for long-term living. So they were living in hotel rooms. But those individuals, as we always do, all took help from our community safety department. So we rehoused 68 individuals who, at least to our knowledge, were not involved in criminal activity. And so an emphasis that, again, these individuals all across the city in hotels like this seem to be preyed upon. They're usually charged cash. They're charged rates that are triple what they should be, and then they're living in what the landlords are allowing essentially as squalor. And so they may be of different mental capacity to understand or age capacity to really understand and comprehend all that. They're preyed upon, they're being taken advantage of. That also stopped when we closed this yesterday. Now, in addition to this, I also, of course, just want to touch on that there is potential for this. This is yet another example of, with the right ownership, this could be a nice hotel. This could be a nice place to live. That's what we want in our city. And so, basically what the owners until yesterday were doing was they would constantly just say, give us a little more time. Because I know you're going to ask me, what do the owners say? So I'm just kind of shortcutting that. They would say, oh yeah, we'll work on that in 3 months. We'll do this in 2 months. And they would do just enough to get the city off their back. And now we know why, because of what they were hiding and what they were allowing. So we will see how they respond now in terms of what kind of establishment this should be, and we will hold them accountable to make sure that at least what's happening here and what has been happening does not happen again. So with that, I'll just mention there's been 151 calls for service in the past year. We've had 9 arrests, and as I mentioned, I don't even know how to calculate probably thousands of 311 calls and 242 cop calls when you add them all up, and letters into our office and other law enforcement offices. Lastly, we know that this corner of Lomas and Louisiana has been problematic for some time. And I was born and raised here. I very much remember the different ebbs and flows of this particular intersection. And we know that there's more work to do. We know we have challenges with respect to the bus stops right here, to the gas station across the street. But what we discovered is there's no doubt, because of the size, this was the hub of criminal activity in this entire area. And so at least we've sort of cut the head off the snake. And we won't stop here. We're going to continue to look at those other areas and problematic properties as well. So with more on this, we do want to provide you with all the detailed information from the people who did the real work to actually shut this down. And so the lead department on all of these efforts is code enforcement, and with us is the Deputy Director, Jeremy Kaiser. Jeremy?
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremy Kaiser, Deputy Director for the Code Enforcement Team. So yesterday and a portion of today, Code Enforcement conducted a check of the property. There's 163 rooms, which is an amazing feat that these wonderful individuals conducted. In nearly every single room, there was a code violation found. These individuals that were residing at this property were living in some very unsanitary conditions, and some of the items that the mayor had brought up, such as like sewage coming out, there was electrical issues, there were mechanical issues, there was heating issues. Tenants weren't getting hot water in their units, and we found that the property was going to be substandard, and the result of that, the property has been vacated due to life safety issues and structural integrity concerns with the property. Sure.
All right, I know you're the highlight of Q&A, so we'll keep going, but I'm sure we'll have more questions.
Okay.
Let's hear from APD, the area commander here. Go ahead, Commander.
Hi, everyone. Commander Josh Richards, South Korea Police Department, Southeast Area Command. Over the last 2 days, APD assisted in this operation. I'm very bittersweet day because this hotel, I remember it as a kid being a very great place to come visit, beautiful place. But over the last decade or so, especially the last 3 or 4 years, the crime problem associated with this hotel has gotten out of control. I've talked to the neighborhoods, I've looked at the crime data. Just to give you an example, we've had 3 shootings with injuries in the last year. One took place right outside the back of the hotel. Individuals were seen doing drug transactions at the back window. There was some sort of dispute. One individual was seen running east in the neighborhood, at which point another individual chased him down and shot him and then got in a vehicle and left. The neighbors were kind enough to give us surveillance video for that, and detectives are actively following up on that. That was in the last few months. Just one of the examples of the crime that's gone on around here, and I'm really hoping with these efforts we can see a massive reduction in crime for the neighborhood, and we can also get pressure on the owners to bring this hotel back to what it was. Any other questions or anything you have afterwards, I'll hang out afterwards. Mayor?
Thanks, Commander. All right, and a little bit about the individuals who are here, our ACS Director.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jody Escobar. I'm the Director for Albuquerque Community Safety. I think that these, as Mayor alluded to, that sometimes folks get into these situations where they're taken advantage of. And so a lot of these incidences, we find them maybe even being preyed upon financially. And so we're able to evaluate what is going on and being able to send them and connect them with resources that will end up hopefully even being in a better situation than they are now. I do want to say that our teams have been here for the last 48 hours. I know it's been a full citywide department, multi-layered approach department. And I just want to thank our teams, the ACS Street Outreach team, for really just putting the time in. They've really individually sat with every single person that wanted resources to understand where they're coming from and really understand what's going on so that we can make sure that they're connected moving forward. There was 68 individuals, as Mayor mentioned, 41 total households. So what that means is maybe there was a couple of people that were living in the same space. 30 of those were transitioned into temporary housing situations, and we thank our community partners that we've been dealing and working together with to have better outcomes for these folks. 7 of those individuals were transported by us, meaning that we helped them gather all their stuff and transported them. A handful of them, 11 of them, had other alternative means of transport as well as other support. And it's just understanding that these situations are extremely complicated, so I'm really thankful that the city approaches this in a layered approach to make sure that everybody receives the care that they need. I'll also be here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we can do some questions if you want to moderate them. I do want to mention animal welfare did find multiple pets. They're all in the appropriate either custody or care based on our HART ordinance, but as always, we make sure and take care of the animals that are found in these hotels as well. Okay, so for questions, go ahead.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Justin.
So you mentioned that of the 68 people who were living here long-term, 30 of them received vouchers. Can you explain what happened to the other 38?
Yes, so let me make sure. So 60 individuals, so 41 households. So that means if somebody was cohabitating with somebody, then I only needed to find one place for those 2 people to live. And so that's why the numbers are different. So if it was a family or somebody staying with somebody else, that was only one voucher or one place that they needed placement for.
Any other questions?
How much time are you giving them to bring them up to code?
So code enforcement gives them a very strict deadline in which they need to achieve compliance. And so code enforcement will be monitoring the progress of the property. Right now it seems that we have stakeholders, the property owners look like they want to make a proactive change and to bring the property back up to its former glory. And dates will range that they'll go through, but code enforcement will monitor it throughout the time that it's under code enforcement's watch.
So do you think it's going to be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
It can vary on to that. So there's a lot of violations that were found in this property. So as I said, there was 163 rooms that were visited, and that's not including the meeting areas, the parking garage. So there was a lot of areas that have to be mandated onto here. We'd like to see achievements made with the property and compliance met within a short time frame to bring this property back into code compliance.
We found code violations in every single room.
Nearly every single room.
And that includes water, electrical.
There was a variation of violations that were found, which include mechanical, electrical, water, plumbing.
About mold and mildew.
Mold, mildew was one of the many violations that we found. Yes, ma'am.
Surrounding neighborhoods have input in what goes on in this property.
So the surrounding neighborhood, it just depends on what they do with the property. As it stands now, if they make the necessary repairs to it, that is on the property owners to do. Our goal on here is to see the restoration of the property and to bring it back into compliance.
I'd like to ask Raquel a question. Is this going to be one of the properties that the city would like to buy to convert into low-income housing?
Yeah, I'll answer that question. I just want to touch on a couple of previous ones because I have some nice. They gave me the fact sheet, so just one thing: the rents were ranging from $280 to $1,000 per month in many cases, cash, and combined with the voucher. So, like, people may have had a hotel voucher and they were overcharging on top of that. The different violations we're going to send pictures out of, like, you're going to see a lot of these. So as we always do with these, just make sure and look at those, and you'll recognize them, Pete, in terms of what you see, even with respect to HVAC. All of that were issues. Then, to your point about the future for this, the first thing is we're going to use the code process to, hold them accountable for what they want to do. But of course, the city is absolutely interested in opportunities to lift up our city. But we know what happens is usually the owner says, well, we want, market value times 25%, and we're not going to do that, and we don't have the funding to do that. But the state gave us a large chunk of funding, the city and the county. It's about $80 million. And the state essentially gets to decide what the city and the county do with it. This property was not on the table because it was still operating until yesterday. And so I do think it's certainly appropriate that we look at this for what we might be able to do with respect to help from the state and the county. And so I think it's on the table, whereas before it was not. But we're obviously not going to give the owner some financial home run for running a dilapidated nest of crime.
What they told us was it was about 24 hours from when we notified that they needed to leave to when they needed to leave. Can you explain why it's 24 hours, a longer period, especially given the volume of people who were living here long term?
Sure. So there was an extended amount of resources that we brought into the property, knowing that there was we were going to inconvenience individuals, potentially if we found the property to be substandard. And we found it to be beyond substandard to the point to where there was a threat to life. And at that point, that's an immediate vacate of the property. And so, it's unfortunate that we had to have the individuals relocate, but the interest of public safety, absolutely. And so,
what were some of the threats to life that led to that decision?
Sure. So there is the structural integrity of the property. There's for example, there was a parking garage below us, and so there was significant damage to the cement and to the pillars to where at any time it could collapse.
All right, one last question from somebody who hasn't asked one. Sir?
So we've seen 7 properties closed. On the ranking of this, how much, is this the worst property that we've come across?
Can I take that one? Sure.
So out of the properties that code enforcement has shut down due to substandard conditions, this one it was not the worst that we ran into, but it was pretty close onto it, but it was one of the biggest facilities that we had to shut down.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, since I'm almost positive this information is available, but who is the company owner of this property?
So we do have that information available. I do not have it available on me at the moment. Do you? Okay.
Rock Hill Capital Partners LLC out of Texas.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate it.
Can I ask one more thing? Will you keep the surrounding neighborhood informed about the progress and what's going on with this property, please?
So code enforcement does a really good job with public engagement and education, so that's one factor onto that. And then we have a multitude of resources that are always available within the area. And then I will stay around after if you have more questions, and we can talk about the community side.
We will. They'll all give you their contact information.
Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming.
Yeah, I'll come.